let's bring in VFL Ollie Lane to discuss that. But really, I want to get more into the community and fan expectations that seem a little off kilter to me. But let's go ahead and dive into that. Ollie, how are you, sir?
Nah, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing today?
I'm fantastic, young man. What do you make of James Pierce not having a sack yet?
hmm I don't know. I've heard a lot of people kind of talk about it throughout this season going on. I think a lot of people don't realize that, yes, they have schemed, other teams have schemed for James Pierce and realize that that's where the attention needs to be when they're trying to block up our defensive line. Because, like I caught Caleb saying at the end there, they didn't really know who Don Bailey was before the season. Last year, it was all about Tyler Barron, which gave James a lot of opportunities to kind of show out and show what he could do without that less attention being drawn to him. But now, I mean, you're coming into the season, you're the projected number one draft pick, you're the best defensive lineman in the college football. So, of course, every team's like, all right, this is the highlight guy. We're going to put all of our focus on this guy. And I think it's made some issues for James and trying to be because I mean, when you're out there trying to make sacks and stuff, but you're consistently having to go against double teams every single time, well, I mean, your percentages of actually winning that double team every single time isn't going to happen. But at the back end of it, he still is effectively making a difference in these games because with them drawing the attention to James, it frees up plays for Don Bailey on the other side and all the other D tackles and stuff because they're trying to put so much protection on him to keep him from the quarterback that they lose the focus on the other parts of the defensive line that are just as talented.
Good stuff. Ollie, let me ask you real quick. What's your Twitter handle again?
Ollie_Lane78.
Oh, you had to put that underscore in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody already had that. It's awful. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Caleb.
Ollie, just another question on this real quick. You see it obviously from the other side as a blocker, but it's one thing for a defensive tackle, but I know edge rushers, a guy like James Pierce, they want to get those sacks. They want to eat every evening. How hard is it for a guy like James Pierce to just maintain the level head to know that these sacks are going to come if he stays about his business when he's having to constantly deal with these double teams? And
yeah. I mean, it's just something that he's got to build up that mental strength to just like, look, I'm making a difference. He's got to understand that in the concept of the role that he plays within the team, that he is contributing and making a difference. Even though the stats aren't jumping for him, he's still a very valued piece of that defense. And I think he knows that. And that helps going through stretches of that where you're thinking, I got to have these stats, I got to get this and that. But at the end of the day, is your team winning? Are you making the team better? And that's all that really matters in the long run. It's going to be hard and a little frustrating at times because you want to put on and put out there what you can. But at the same time, if you're thinking about it as a team first mindset, then you know that you're still on the right track for things.
Okay, before we get to the topic that I really want to dig into, because you've been a player and now you're in the community and you hear reaction. You do John Pennington's Sports Horse show on Saturday, the pregame show. I'm sure you've been on the postgame show as well on Sundays. So I want to get to your thoughts on the response from the Oklahoma game, which wasn't 100% positive, which is very odd to me. So I want to get into that. But first, do you think Tennessee's players are aware and or affected by the fact that Danico Slaughter and Addison Nichols were named captains today by Arkansas's football team?
No, I saw that. And I think that's more of just like a piece of the puzzle in the storyline for the game for Arkansas to play into. I know Danico Slaughter's been playing really great for them over there. And, he is probably going to be one of those captain type guys for that team. But, we do take attention to that. And I'm like, oh, hey, those are our guys. We know them very well. We're friends with them still. But now we get to compete against them instead of with them, which is going to be interesting. But, it might add a little bit more, salt into the wound, get them a little more jazzed up to play this game. You never know.
What happened with Addison Nichols? I'm not asking you to air dirty
laundry,
but just kind of your thoughts on why he didn't end up being a contributing ball.
Yeah, me and Addison have a really great relationship. I tried to take him under my wing when he was here and kind of, teach him along. I think part of the reason that it just didn't work out here is there was some disconnect between the coaching style that he thrives under best. And I mean, every athlete's different. They're going to respond different to different coaching techniques and styles. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. And it's not that one side did something wrong or did something that they shouldn't have. It's just that it was a non-fit. And so I think he's found a good fit over at Arkansas. And I mean, it's a struggle for an offensive lineman to come in when you've got, I mean, when he came in, there was two junior seniors at guard. You had two junior seniors at center. Your tackles were pretty much stacked up. So, I mean, he came in at a time where like the need for him was going to be future on in his career. And I think he was looking more of that, like, I want to play now kind of aspect of things. And he just wasn't getting what he needed out of it where he was at in his career.
Ollie, you said you tried to take him under your wing. I mean, at what point did you think that, man, he might look elsewhere, or were you totally taken aback when he transferred?
I mean, obviously it's conversations that we had personally going through last year because I knew where his head was at, and I'd try to motivate him, keep him all involved. But I mean, there's only so much that you can do from a mentor standpoint to really like not overstep your bounds in a way and let him kind of go through his own personal journey himself. I mean, I tried to give him the tools and advice that I could throughout the way. But the fact of the matter is he's going to make his own decision because he's a grown man, and you can only help advise him to make the right decision for him.
Let's change gears. So I feel like, and this is still resonating. I firmly believe that the Oklahoma game was one of Josh Heupel's best coached games as a ball.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that wholeheartedly. I would argue that until my dying day, which, as old as I am, could be any day. But Ollie, it just doesn't seem like the community has been okay with, air quotes, winning ugly. I thought it was winning beautiful. But
yeah,
have you heard that in the community? I mean, what's kind of your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact is fan expectations are always going to be all over the place for any Tennessee team. Even from my time at Tennessee, it went from like, oh, we're expecting this, and then we don't get it. It's a disappointment. Look, I mean, the fact is they went out and they played a complete football game against Oklahoma, and they were smart about it. I mean, Josh Heupel made big coaching decisions to not only save his players for the rest of the season, but also make sure that he still puts us in a position to win without overextending ourselves to get us into a position of risk of not knowing if we're going to win the game. He knew the outcome of that game as he was coaching it the entire time and knew that, look, I'm at a position right now. I've got two of my tackles out. I've got a young quarterback that I don't really want to get beat up his first SEC game on the road. Let me rely on this defense that has been my big support source throughout this entire season and the big rider for what this season is going to be. And I think he did that. And I think fans should take away from that is like, wow, we actually have a defense that can go out and win us games. That's huge. That's something that we haven't had in a long time. And look, I get it. You want to throw up big points. You want to blow teams out. But look at what you did from a physical aspect. You physically outmatched Oklahoma and destroyed their motivations to wanting to win that game. I mean, they came out of that second half with the new quarterback. They got some stuff going, but I mean, you could tell they were ready to get off that field. They were ready to be done with that game. And I think that's what fans need to look at is like they were physically exhausted by the end of that game because of what our team was able to do to them.
I was Caleb, I want to turn to you, but I was visiting with Mr. Jeff Newbert of Newbert Collision Center actually this morning. And I said, what would you have said 4 years ago if I would have told you that Tennessee was going to be on the road at Oklahoma, have 2 strip sack fumbles, and win the game by double digits?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that just wouldn't have happened.
No, it doesn't happen. No, that stuff like that doesn't happen. You go anywhere on SEC on the road, you have 1 turnover. You're looking at, I don't know if you're going to win that game, but to have 2 and to still for that entire game be squarely in control of what the outcome was going to be is huge.
So, Ollie, I wanted to dive in a little bit about, flesh this out a little more, not just about the winning ugly, but fan expectations in general, because you're a young guy. You're younger than Dave and I. Dave and I both remember there was a time period in the 90s and the 2000s where Tennessee just circled wins and took them for granted. And you were on the 2022 team. that was really the first taste of what it was once like for Tennessee fans in the
Mm-hmm.
90s and 2000s. And it didn't feel like, and I can just tell you from the perspective of covering that team, the fans, they didn't take any win for granted. They were thrilled with the Akron win, they were thrilled with the Florida win, and they were thrilled with the LSU win before the Alabama game. Do you get the vibe that there's a little more, unfortunately, taking some of these wins for granted this time around, 2
Mm-hmm.
years later, because they've been there?
I would say to a point, a little bit fan expectation starts to rise, especially with what Heupel's been able to put out as a product. I mean, you go back to 2019, we win the Tax Slayer Bowl. Everybody's got these expectations for us for 2020, and we absolutely ruined them. And I mean, that's the bad thing that happens with fan expectations. You know, you get so built up on the offseason, what you think, but you really, expectations are expectations. You don't know what's going to happen. And I mean, fans just let their expectations control what they deem this team should do. Look, the fact is, every win is a blessing because you never know. Any Saturday, you could lose a game against any opponent in college football. I mean, that's just how it is. It's how every sport is set up. I mean, everyone's got a fair chance to win a game. But I mean, I think to a point, there's wins that you expect, and there's games that you still don't take for granted, those big wins. But at the same time, you've got to be able to just rejoice that we're not back in the dark ages that we were in between 2010 and 2020. I mean, those years are starting to edge out, but make sure that you're still thankful for where we're at now because, I mean, yes, there's still a lot of places for us to grow, but enjoy what we got because we know how quickly it can turn bad for everybody.
Yeah, so you guys, this team, it just feels like, and I don't want to say the team because I don't want to talk about what Heupel's doing with the team, but I hear a lot of fans already talking about Alabama in 3 weeks. And with you guys in 2022, there's no way y'all would have done that, right? Y'all would have been like, oh my gosh, we have a chance to get 5-0. We have a chance to get 6-0 because it hadn't been done in so long in Tennessee, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that whole 2022 season, I mean, it was like every week, like, oh, we're undefeated still. We're undefeated still. We got another one. We got another one. I mean, it was just pushing through the season. Like every single game was just so big because it was another chance to push that record out a little bit more. When you look at it now, it's just like, yes, we want to win. We expect to win. And I mean, that's something when you look at this team in general, I mean, that's something that they're told every day, even in the offseason. It's like, you got 3 different teams. You got teams that are built on hope, and their hopes get crushed. They're never going to accomplish anything. You got teams that are built on expectations. They're not going to meet up to the expectations. Or you got teams that a team that expects to win every single time they step on the field. And that's the mindset that Tennessee and this team has is every time they step on the field, they expect to win. And that's something that when you're not winning, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that you are winning. And you know your weekly prep, if you're a team that expects to win, you know your weekly prep is right to get you in a position to win that game.
Okay, so you've been around for the dark ages. At what point in your expectations, we're talking about fan expectations, but at what point did you feel like Tennessee's football team expected that you're a part of, expected to win each and every week, not hoped?
I mean, if I look back, break it up into 2 sections of what was my career with Pruitt and Heupel. When we played with Pruitt, there was no game that we went in with an expectation of winning that game. It's sad to talk about it now, but I mean, just a lot of people on that team, it was just how much are we going to get beat by this week? How much, what's it going to be? It was not a good atmosphere to be around. But, once Heupel came in, right about that mid-21 year when we started seeing what this offense, maybe after the Missouri game, after we saw like what this offense can really do, it was like, all right, well, we expect a boat race, put a bunch of points on everybody. And now we get to 22, that started working. We started putting points out, blowing people out, going into shootouts. And so 2022 was probably the year that I just strictly every game that we went into as a team, we expected to win. About halfway through the season, that confidence was just skyrocketed through the roof. And then last year, going into every single game, we thought we expected to win every single game. Obviously, it didn't work out for us how we intended it to. But I mean, even after we had lost games in that season, that mindset still stuck that we expected to win. Just sometimes the game and the breaks just went against us, and it is what it is now. But I mean, you can see it in the mindset of the team this year. It's only now 4 years into Heupel's not only philosophy as a coach, but his mentality philosophy has really bought in by these players of, hey, we are a good team because we value ourselves as a good team and we expect to come out and win against any opponent that you put out against us.
Are fan expectations too high is our poll question. Yes, just win. No, win with style. Pardon the typo. 10% of the people say win with style. Ollie, what would you say to those that say you can't just win, you got to win with style?
I'd say just be happy with the win. A win's a win. I mean, when you look at it, you can win with style. It's cool, but some of those games got to be some dirty, ugly, nobody wants to watch it games because that's the SEC football. SEC football is not clean, beautiful. Look at these dazzling plays. No, it's hard grit. We're gonna out physical somebody else.
So, Ollie, let's talk about how Josh Heupel approaches the team, because obviously you're talking about how just the way it felt for you guys is we gave Josh Heupel a lot of credit in 2022 for keeping you guys level-headed, but it sounds like you guys yourselves were just taking it one game at a time. How much faith do you have in Josh Heupel to make sure his players don't get infected by a fan base that's starting to take wins for granted too much?
Yeah, I mean, Heupel does a good job of paying attention to that. He's like, everybody's going to talk about us. It's either going to be good or bad, but you ignore the good, you ignore the bad, you just focus on what you can control. And I think that's a big point of everything is you only focus on what you can control. Don't listen to the outside noise. Everybody talks about it. Don't listen to the outside noise. I caught myself listening to the outside noise from time to time last year, just because it's so easy to, especially when people are mentioning your name and stuff like that, you want to know what people are saying. But at the end of the day, you know, Heupel does a good job. He's brought in Coach Bird that does a bunch of mentality training and stuff like that to get these guys to not only focus on what they're doing on the field, but hey, this game transfers into your mental state as well. How can you train your mind to be a better athlete? And he's taken that next step of even hiring Coach Bird as a person on staff dedicated just to the mental aspect of the game. And I don't know if a lot of people, I think they're starting to move to that now because they see, obviously, in the past few years, mental health has become more and more of a bigger topic for people to talk about. And I mean, he's taken that and ran with it. And it's like, hey, this is an important aspect of the game. This is something that I should be investing into my players for because I want them to be mentally strong going into each game.
So I'm not familiar with Coach Bird. Did you say? So is he like a psychologist type, or what does he do?
So Coach Bird was the strength coach when they were at Missouri, and did a lot of that like mental training stuff on kind of like based in his strength performance training. And so he found that the mental aspect drives a lot of the performance aspect out of players. And so he's done a bunch of studies and different stuff like that and research. And Heupel felt he would be valuable asset to bring on the team to help with just how big of a mental aspect is now for players today.
Huh. That's good stuff. Hey, Ollie, again, where can we see you? I know you hang out with that shady character, John Penny.
Yeah. Every Saturday morning, 11 a.m., ABC, Channel 6. No reason to ever turn the dial either because, you know, SEC games just keep rolling on after that. So start a good morning with us and then get into your football Saturday.
Yeah. Just remember, don't ever text John before 9 a.m.
Yeah.
I made that mistake this morning. All right. Ollie, have a blessed day, sir. Enjoy the weekend of football. It means a lot for you to be a part of the program. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, guys. Have a good weekend.
I appreciate that. Ollie Lane, former Vol, joining us. How awesome is that?